Rio Bravo wasn't just another Western shoot-'em-up starring John Wayne, it was Hollywood's most lavish middle finger, a $10.5 million rebuke to High Noon that spawned a decade of copycats while hiding career-altering drama behind every frame. What started as director Howard Hawks' comeback after the disastrous Land of the Pharaohs quickly descended into on-set chaos. An alcoholic Dean Martin stumbling through his first post-Jerry Lewis role, a teenage Ricky Nelson tossed into cow manure on his birthday, a nervous John Wayne terrified of romance scenes with a woman half his age, and Hawks deliberately cutting dialogue from stars he didn't want, all while crafting what would become one of the most influential westerns ever made. The production wasn't just challenging, it was a powder keg of clashing personalities, hidden agendas, and behind-the-scenes power plays that somehow resulted in cinematic gold. From unauthorized script changes to on-set hazing and a soundtrack that launched 3 hit singles, here are 15 weird facts about Rio Bravo that will forever change how you see this western classic. But stick around for the bonus fact, the shocking Hollywood blacklist connection that explains why John Wayne called a fellow actor's film un-American and celebrated running its writer out of the country. So grab your spittoon and settle in. This ain't your daddy's behind-the-scenes documentary. Fact number 1. The director's daughter wrote the film's explosive climax under a pseudonym. When the credits roll on Rio Bravo, you'll spot a mysterious B.H. McCampbell credited with the original story. This wasn't some unknown Western pulp writer. It was Barbara Hawks McCampbell, director Howard Hawks' eldest daughter. The most explosive part of the film, quite literally, came from her imagination. The idea to use dynamite in the final shootout. Hawks didn't just hire his daughter out of nepotism, he disguised her contribution behind initials and her married name, creating a Hollywood mystery that remained unsolved for decades. The father-daughter collaboration produced one of the most memorable Western climaxes ever filmed, with sticks of dynamite creating havoc as John Wayne's Sheriff Chance and his ragtag deputies face off against an army of gunmen. This wasn't a minor contribution to an already complete script, it fundamentally transformed the film's third act, elevating it from standard gunfight to spectacular showdown. Without Barbara's explosive idea, Rio Bravo's finale would have been just another shootout in a genre filled with them. Instead, it became a masterclass in escalating tension that directors still study today. The McCampbell name may have hidden a woman's contribution to a quintessentially masculine genre, but her impact on Western cinema was undeniable. Fact number 2. John Wayne was terrified of romance scenes with Angie Dickinson. The Duke, the embodiment of rugged masculinity, was secretly panicking about the romantic scenes with his co-star, Angie Dickinson. Why? At 51, Wayne was a full 24 years older than the 27-year-old Dickinson and felt increasingly self-conscious about the age gap. He worried audiences wouldn't believe their on-screen chemistry and that he was too old to play a romantic lead. Wayne's anxiety manifested in multiple ways during production. He repeatedly questioned Hawks about the love scenes, suggesting rewrites or alternative approaches. The tension became so noticeable that other cast members picked up on it, yet on screen, none of this uncertainty appears. Their chemistry crackles with tension, particularly in the famous bedroom scene where Feathers refuses to leave town despite Chance's protests. What audiences never realized was that Wayne's discomfort created the exact tension Hawks wanted. The director later admitted he deliberately played into Wayne's insecurities, knowing it would translate to a more vulnerable performance. Dickinson, meanwhile, found Wayne's nervousness endearing, later describing him as adorable on set, a term rarely associated with the Duke. The romance that Wayne feared would fall flat became one of the film's most celebrated elements, proving that sometimes an actor's greatest insecurities lead to their most authentic performances. Fact number 3. Dean Martin nearly didn't get cast because he looked too good. Dean Martin's portrayal of the alcoholic deputy dude stands as one of cinema's most compelling depictions of addiction and redemption. Yet Martin almost lost the role because he looked too handsome and put together when he arrived for his first meeting with Hawks. The director took one look at the polished crooner and thought he was completely wrong to play a man at rock bottom. Hawks' solution was brutally direct. Go home, don't take a bath, don't shave, put on some old clothes, and come back tomorrow. Martin returned the next day, looking appropriately disheveled, wearing an old hat and sweatshirt. The transformation was so complete that when Jack Warner visited the set, he failed to recognize the studio's expensive new star. "We hired Dean Martin. When's he going to be in this picture?" Warner asked. Hawks pointed to the scruffy figure in the corner. "He's the funny-looking guy in the old hat." Martin's commitment to physical transformation didn't end with his appearance. To understand the shakes of alcohol withdrawal, he deliberately kept his body in a state of exhaustion during the filming of key scenes. The authenticity of his performance comes from a dark place. Martin himself had a complicated relationship with alcohol that would continue throughout his life. Rio Bravo marked his first dramatic role after his bitter split from comedy partner Jerry Lewis, and the pressures of proving himself as a serious actor weighed heavily. The trembling hands reaching for that first drink weren't entirely acting. Fact number 4. Ricky Nelson was hazed with 300 pounds of manure on his birthday. Young heartthrob Ricky Nelson celebrated his 18th birthday. Birthday on the Rio Bravo set in a way he never forgot with a face full of cow manure. The teen idol, fresh off his #1 hit, Poor Little Fool, found himself the victim of an elaborate prank orchestrated by John Wayne and Dean Martin. The two older stars presented Nelson with a massive 300-pound sack of steer manure as a birthday gift, then promptly tossed the birthday boy headfirst into it. This wasn't just good-natured ribbing, it was a calculated initiation into the fraternity of serious actors. Nelson was cast primarily because Hawks needed a teen idol to boost the film's commercial appeal. The director freely admitted he considered Nelson too young and too lightweight for the role. The hazing served as both entertainment for the veteran actors and a not-so-subtle reminder to Nelson of his place in the hierarchy. Surprisingly, Nelson took it in stride. Rather than complaining or retreating, he earned Wayne and Martin's respect by laughing it off. The experience bonded the unlikely trio, creating genuine camaraderie that translated to their on-screen chemistry. Nelson even paid tribute to the film and his character Colorado by recording Restless Kid for his next album. The manure baptism marked his transition from teen idol to legitimate actor, though Hawks still minimized his dialogue, giving him the fewest lines of any third-billed star in his filmography. Fact number 5. Walter Brennan was banned from improvising after unauthorized script changes. Walter Brennan's portrayal of the cantankerous Stumpy is among the most memorable elements of Rio Bravo, providing perfect comic relief against Wayne's stoic sheriff. What audiences didn't know was that Brennan repeatedly went off script, adding lines and changing dialogue without authorization, until Hawks finally put his foot down and banned the practice. Brennan wasn't just any actor taking creative liberties. He was a 3-time Academy Award winner who believed he knew better than the screenwriters. The conflict came to a head during a pivotal jail scene when Brennan significantly altered his dialogue. Hawks, known for his insistence on script fidelity, immediately halted production and publicly reprimanded the star. From that point forward, Brennan was required to perform his lines exactly as written. The restriction created unexpected tension on set. Brennan, accustomed to considerable creative freedom, became increasingly frustrated. Yet paradoxically, this frustration fueled his performance as the irritable, complaining Stumpy. What appears as perfect comedic timing and natural crankiness was partially genuine annoyance at being creatively constrained. Hawks later admitted the conflict worked to the film's advantage. Walter was actually angry in some of those scenes, and it made Stumpy more believable. Brennan's performance earned him a reputation as one of Hollywood's finest character actors, even if some of Stumpy's irritability wasn't entirely fictional. Fact number 6. Howard Hawks deliberately gave Ricky Nelson the fewest lines possible. Teen idol. Ricky Nelson wasn't Howard Hawks' first choice for the role of Colorado. The director initially wanted Elvis Presley, hoping the King's star power would attract younger audiences. When Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, demanded top billing and an exorbitant salary, Hawks reluctantly settled on Nelson, then systematically minimized his screen presence. Hawks made no secret of his disdain, telling colleagues Nelson was too young and too lightweight for the part. The director's solution was ruthlessly pragmatic. He gave Nelson the absolute minimum number of lines possible for a third-billed star. The script was deliberately structured to keep Colorado quiet, with other characters often speaking for him or answering questions before he could. When Nelson did have dialogue, Hawks frequently shot him from a distance or had his back to the camera. The irony? Hawks later admitted that casting Nelson added at least $2 million to the film's box office, a substantial sum in 1959. The director got exactly what he wanted. Nelson's name on the marquee attracted screaming teenage fans, while his limited screen time prevented what Hawks feared would be a subpar performance from undermining the film. Nelson, aware of Hawks' strategy, focused on making his few moments count. His restraint and understated performance actually worked perfectly for Colorado's character, a young gunslinger who speaks little but observes everything. What began as a director's manipulation inadvertently created one of the most effectively minimalist performances in Western cinema. Fact number 7. The film was created as a direct political attack on another Western. Rio Bravo wasn't just a Western, it was cinematic warfare. John Wayne and Howard Hawks conceived the entire project as a direct political counterattack against High Noon, a film Wayne despised so much he called it un-American and later boasted about helping blacklist its screenwriter, Carl Foreman. High Noon's allegory about a town abandoning its sheriff during a crisis was widely interpreted as a criticism of Hollywood's response to McCarthy-era blacklisting. Wayne, a vocal supporter of the House Un-American Activities Committee, was incensed. He and Hawks deliberately crafted Rio Bravo as the anti-High Noon, a film where the hero refuses help from unqualified townspeople and stands with only capable allies. The political battle between these films wasn't subtle. Wayne's Sheriff Chance explicitly rejects offers of assistance from townspeople, directly contradicting High Noon's premise. When a character does volunteer without proper skills, he's quickly killed, a pointed commentary that ordinary citizens should leave fighting to professionals. Hawks publicly criticized High Noon, saying, "I didn't think a good sheriff was going to go running around town like a chicken with his head cut off, asking for help, and finally his Quaker wife had to save him." The animosity ran so deep that Wayne maintained his hatred for High Noon throughout his life, despite it being considered one of the greatest westerns ever made. Rio Bravo thus stands as perhaps the only blockbuster film created primarily to refute another movie's political message. Fact number 8. The iconic opening scene was nearly cut due to studio pressure. Rio Bravo's legendary opening sequence, 4 dialogue-free minutes establishing Dude's alcoholism through purely visual storytelling, almost ended up on the cutting room floor. Studio executives, concerned about the film's 141-minute runtime, demanded Hawks trim the unnecessarily slow opening, arguing audiences would grow restless. Hawks refused, triggering a standoff with Warner Brothers that nearly derailed the production. The director insisted the wordless sequence was essential, allowing viewers to understand Dean Martin's character without exposition. When executives threatened to edit the film themselves, Hawks countered with a screening for test audiences, who overwhelmingly praised the opening as one of the film's strongest elements. The sequence represents cinema at its most visually powerful. Using only facial expressions, body language, and environmental sounds, Hawks establishes the entire relationship between Wayne and Martin's characters. Film schools now teach this scene as a masterclass in visual storytelling. The spittoon humiliation, the missed coin, the swift punch, and Wayne's unflinching response communicate volumes without a single word. Hawks' battle to preserve this sequence preserved what would become one of the most influential openings in Western cinema, proving that sometimes silence speaks louder than dialogue. Fact number 9. Ward Bond's death scene was filmed with a body double, because he had already left the set. In one of Hollywood's strangest production compromises, Ward Bond's character Pat Wheeler gets gunned down from a distance, not for dramatic effect, but because Bond himself had already departed the production. The actor had to return to his hit television series Wagon Train, leaving Hawks with unfinished scenes featuring a pivotal character. Rather than rewrite the script, Hawks employed a body double, filmed exclusively from a distance or from behind. The director carefully edited existing footage of Bond with these double shots to create the illusion that the actor was still present. If you watch closely, you'll notice Wheeler's death scene is conspicuously shot from far away, with no close-ups of the character's face as he falls. The hasty solution created continuity problems that sharp-eyed viewers might catch. Wheeler's clothing subtly changes between shots, and his physical dimensions appear slightly different when the double is used. Hawks compensated by keeping these scenes briefer than originally planned, cutting away quickly to reaction shots. What seemed like artistic choices, the distant perspective of Wheeler's murder emphasizing the suddenness of violence, were actually technical necessities born from scheduling conflicts. This workaround became an accidental influence on how death scenes would be filmed in later westerns, proving that sometimes production limitations create innovative visual solutions. Fact number 10. John Wayne and Howard Hawks ended a friendship over deleted scenes. Go ahead and like and subscribe because we're about to reveal the shocking friendship breakup that Hollywood kept hidden for decades. John Wayne and Harry Carey Jr. had been close friends for years, with Carey appearing in numerous Wayne films including 3 directed by John Ford. When Carey was cast in Rio Bravo, it seemed like another successful collaboration, until all his scenes mysteriously disappeared from the final cut. The deletion wasn't a creative decision but personal vengeance. According to multiple sources, Carey made the fatal mistake of addressing Hawks by his first name rather than the respectful Mr. Hawks during his first days on set. The notoriously temperamental director was so offended by this perceived disrespect that he not only cut all of Carey's scenes but insisted he remain credited in the film, ensuring maximum professional embarrassment for the actor. Wayne was furious when he discovered his friend had been essentially erased from the movie while still appearing in the credits. He confronted Hawks, leading to a heated argument that damaged their relationship for years. Though they would work together again on El Dorado and Rio Lobo, the trust between them never fully recovered. Carey later revealed the truth in his autobiography, confirming that his drinking problem at the time had led to the casual Howard that ended his role in what would become a classic film. The incident exposed the fragility of Hollywood friendships when set against the rigid hierarchies of power on a movie set. Fact number 11. The soundtrack contains a secret message to Texas rebels. The haunting trumpet melody, El Deguello, that plays throughout Rio Bravo, isn't just atmospheric background music. It's a historically loaded psychological warfare weapon with deep roots in Texas history. The song was specifically chosen by Hawks for its disturbing historical significance. It was the battle tune played continuously by Santa Anna's Mexican army during the siege of the Alamo, signaling that no quarter would be given to the defenders. Dmitry Tiomkin's adaptation of this historical melody serves as Nathan Burdett's psychological weapon against Sheriff Chance, much as it was used against the Texas defenders in 1836. When Burdett has the saloon band repeatedly play the tune, every Texan character in the film immediately recognizes it, a subtle historical detail that flew over the heads of most viewers but resonated deeply with Texas audiences. The musical choice connects Rio Bravo to larger themes in Wayne's career. The actor was simultaneously preparing to direct and star in The Alamo 1960, where the same melody would feature prominently. The song became so associated with Wayne that Italian composer Ennio Morricone later created a similar trumpet theme for A Fistful of Dollars as a deliberate reference to Tiomkin's work. What most viewers heard as simply a memorable tension-building theme was actually a complex historical reference that transformed a piece of psychological warfare into one of cinema's most recognizable Western musical motifs. Fact number 12. The film deliberately broke continuity to showcase Wayne's trademark belt buckle. Eagle-eyed viewers might notice John Wayne's belt buckle mysteriously changes position throughout Rio Bravo, not due to continuity errors, but because of a deliberate character choice. Wayne insisted on wearing his iconic Red River D belt buckle from Howard Hawks' earlier Western. The problem? The distinctive buckle didn't match Sheriff Chance's otherwise simple costume. The compromise they reached was bizarrely specific. Wayne would wear the buckle in its normal position during standard scenes, but flip it upside down during confrontational moments to make it less noticeable. This explains why the buckle appears to change throughout the film. It's literally being flipped, depending on the emotional tone of the scene. During Chance's tough guy moments confronting Nathan Burdett, the buckle is deliberately turned down in what Wayne called traditional tough guy mode. This wasn't just actor vanity. The Red River D buckle had become Wayne's good luck charm after the massive success of Red River in 1948. He wore it in nearly every Western he made afterward, considering it essential to his on-screen persona. Hawks, known for his attention to visual detail, initially objected to the anachronistic accessory, but eventually incorporated it into the character's psychology, suggesting that Chance's flipping of the buckle indicated his emotional state. What began as a superstition actor's request became an unusual but effective character detail, one that Wayne would continue in subsequent films. Fact number 13. Montgomery Clift rejected the film because he refused to work with Wayne again. Dean Martin's portrayal of the alcoholic deputy dude almost never happened. The role was initially offered to Montgomery Clift, who flatly refused it, not because of the character or script, but because he couldn't stand the thought of working with John Wayne and Walter Brennan again after their disastrous collaboration on Red River in 1948. The behind-the-scenes tension on Red River had reached legendary status in Hollywood. Wayne and Clift represented opposite ends of the political spectrum, with Wayne's staunch conservatism clashing violently with Clift's liberal views. Witnesses reported shouting matches between takes, with Brennan often joining Wayne in baiting the younger actor about his politics and sexuality. By the end of production, Clift had vowed never to work with either man again, a promise he kept when Hawks approached him for Rio Bravo. Clift's rejection proved fortunate for all involved. Martin, desperate to prove himself as a serious actor after his split from Jerry Lewis, brought unexpected depth to Dude. His own complicated relationship with alcohol informed his performance in ways Clift might not have accessed. Film critics later noted that Martin's natural vulnerability and charm made Dude's redemption more believable than Clift's intensity might have allowed. What began as a personal grudge between actors led to one of the most inspired casting decisions in Western cinema, proving that sometimes the right actor finds a role precisely because the first choice refused it. Fact number 14. The film predicted its own legacy with two nearly identical remakes. In a case of Hollywood deja vu, Howard Hawks and John Wayne essentially remade Rio Bravo twice more with increasingly diminishing returns. El Dorado, 1966, and Rio Lobo, 1970, recycled not just the basic premise but entire scenes, characters, and even specific dialogue, creating what film historians now call the Rio Bravo trilogy. The similarities are far beyond typical genre conventions. All three films feature Wayne as a sheriff holding a prisoner while fending off the prisoner's powerful relatives. In each film, Wayne's character is assisted by a drunk in need of redemption, Dean Martin, then Robert Mitchum, then Jack Elam, a young gunslinger, Ricky Nelson, then James Caan, then Jorge Rivero, and a physically disabled older man providing comic relief. Specific scenes, like the jail standoff, are recreated almost shot for shot across all three films. Hawks made no attempt to hide this repetition, freely admitting, "I liked Rio Bravo so much that I made it twice more." the diminishing quality of each iteration, Rio Bravo is universally considered superior to its quasi-remakes, didn't go unnoticed by critics or audiences. The trilogy's existence raises fascinating questions about artistic recycling. At what point does a filmmaker's return to familiar territory become self-plagiarism? The phenomenon has become a case study in film schools about the line between inspiration and repetition. What other director could remake the same film 3 times with the same star and still be considered a master craftsman? Only Hawks achieved this dubious distinction. Fact number 15. Quentin Tarantino uses the film as a relationship test. Rio Bravo's influence extends far beyond cinema into the personal life of one of Hollywood's most celebrated directors. Quentin Tarantino has publicly stated he uses the film as a relationship litmus test. Before getting serious with a woman, he shows her Rio Bravo. If she doesn't appreciate it, the relationship ends then and there. Tarantino's obsession with the film goes beyond casual fandom. He ranks it as one of his top 3 films of all time and has screened his personal 35mm print at the New Beverly Cinema, which he owns, countless times. Elements of Rio Bravo appear throughout his filmography. The extended dialogue scenes, the building of unlikely alliances, and even specific visual compositions pay homage to Hawks' Western. This peculiar relationship test reflects Rio Bravo's unique status among film aficionados. Unlike more obvious classics, appreciating Rio Bravo requires recognizing its subtle character dynamics, understated humor, and deliberate pacing, qualities Tarantino values in potential partners. The test has apparently ended several relationships, though Tarantino remains unapologetic. I'm not saying she has to love it or consider it the greatest film ever made, but if she doesn't get it, that's it. While most films are remembered for their cultural or artistic impact, Rio Bravo may be the only classic Hollywood Western that regularly determines the romantic fate of one of cinema's most influential modern directors. Bonus fact. In the most bizarre behind-the-scenes mystery from Rio Bravo, a promotional photo shows the entire cast inexplicably holding a picture of Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin's estranged former comedy partner. The photo has baffled film historians for decades, as Martin and Lewis had just gone through one of Hollywood's most bitter public breakups, ending their wildly successful partnership amid reports they could barely stand to be in the same room. Rio Bravo marked Martin's first major dramatic role after the split, a deliberate attempt to establish himself as a serious actor outside the shadow of his former partner. So why would the entire cast pose with Lewis's picture? No cast member ever provided a definitive explanation, but competing theories emerged over the years. Some suggest it was an elaborate practical joke at Martin's expense, orchestrated by Wayne and Hawks to gauge whether Martin could take a jest about his former partner. Others believe it was Martin's own idea, a way of signaling he had moved beyond the feud and could now laugh about it. The most compelling theory comes from a production assistant who later claimed it was a deliberate publicity stunt designed to generate gossip and keep both Martin and Lewis in the headlines. Whatever the truth, the photo remains one of Hollywood's most peculiar artifacts, a strange moment of levity during the filming of a Western classic, capturing a group of cinematic legends united in an inside joke that history never fully explained. In the end, Rio Bravo wasn't just a Western classic, it was a nexus of Hollywood relationships, political battles, and career transformations that somehow coalesced into cinematic magic. From Hawks' determined comeback to Wayne's political agenda, Martin's career reinvention to Nelson's initiation into serious acting, the film represents a perfect storm of talent and tension that could never be replicated. Perhaps that explains why even Hawks' own attempts to remake it never captured the same magic. Some films are more than the sum of their parts. They're lightning in a bottle, capturing a moment when even behind-the-scenes chaos somehow produces perfection.